Counselor Campbell.
Here.
Counselor Siomo. Counselor Edwards. Counselor Asabi George. Counselor Flaherty. Counselor Flynn. Counselor Garrison. Counselor Janey. Counselor McCarthy. Counselor O'Malley. Counselor Wu. And Counselor Zachem. Madam President, we have all present.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk. I have been informed by the clerk that a quorum is present. At this time, if all guests, staff, and colleagues could please rise. Our lovely clerk is going to bring us through our invocation today. I ask everyone to remain standing after the invocation for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good afternoon. Remembering our virtues, spirit of life and love, which moves through us and through all the world. May we this day be grateful for the gift of life which is ours, remembering today and always that the life we have and hold is to us a mystery and precious. May we this day be reminded of the responsibilities we carry, not so that we are intimidated or overwhelmed, but so that we may be true to them, so that we may be faithful in carrying them forward. May we this day maintain a sense of perspective, remembering who we are, engaging the tasks at hand, but understanding our limitations, understanding our own shortcomings, forgiving ourselves and others if we fall short of perfection. May we this day be inspired, be filled with new breath, be filled with new enthusiasm, be ready to see fresh opportunity with new perspectives, unnoticed avenues for action and resolution. And may we this day remember those virtues that bless our lives and bless the lives of others. The virtues of caring and concern, the virtues of honesty and respect, the virtues of charity, industry, and patience. And may the members of the Boston City Council maintain a high sense of their calling, remembering that they are invested here with honor and called to be a wider vision of the world, a world made more fair, more just, more equitable by their efforts. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you again, Madam Clerk. At this time, Councilors Asabi, George, and Janey have a special presentation.
Good afternoon. Today we are joined by the president of the Boston chapter of the NAACP, Tanisha Sullivan, chair of the Health Committee, Erica Florence, and members of the NAACP's Health Committee to recognize July as Minority Mental Health Month. As chair of the Committee on Homelessness, Mental Health, and Recovery, it's my honor to host, in our honor, in partnership with Councilor Janey, to host the NAACP for an exhibit that happened earlier this morning and a presentation on their work to address mental health in communities of color. Throughout my work on expanding access to mental health services, combating stigma and providing diverse service providers continues to be among the top challenges in the mental health industry. They are here today to provide a presentation on their collaboration with McLean Hospital to build public awareness about the realities of mental illness in communities of color. As a city councilor and resident of Boston, I am grateful for their dedication to support the mental well-being of our African American and minority communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just really quickly, I'm grateful for the opportunity to stand here with my colleague, Councilor Asabi George, as well as the president of the NAACP, Erica Florence, who serves as our chair for this committee, and Joyce for all of her work on this very important issue that impacts so many people in our community. And I'm grateful that you guys took time to kind of come, share the work that you're doing, and help us do our work better. So thank you so much for being here.
Well, good afternoon. Come on now. Good afternoon. Great. I'm Tanisha Sullivan. I'm the president of the NAACP Boston branch, and I do want to thank the City Council for taking the time out to acknowledge this important issue that impacts, quite frankly, so many of the residents of the city of Boston. In particular, I do want to thank Councilors Asabi George and Janey for not only acknowledging and recognizing the importance of mental health in our communities, but also for their understanding of how mental health wellness actually intersects with so many of the other issues that we work to address across the city. For those who don't know, the NAACP Boston branch is the first branch in the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP. The NAACP is the oldest and largest civil rights organization in the country. The Boston branch is volunteer operated, and our primary advocacy focus areas are in education, equity and opportunity, economic justice, criminal justice reform and public safety, climate justice, civic engagement, and the elimination of health disparities. Historically, our focus has been on physical health disparities in the Black community. When I assumed office in 2017, one of the things that I asked our health committee, which at the time was chaired by Joyce Clark, to really explore was really mental health, based on personal experience, family experience, friend experience, and community experience. What I understood was that this was an area of health that we had not focused on historically, but that its impact was significant. Before I turn it over to Erica to talk a little bit about the work that we've done over the past 2 years related to mental health awareness, education and awareness, and destigmatizing mental health in the Black community specifically, I do want to share a few data points for you because I do believe deeply in allowing the data to drive our actions. According to the National Institute of Health, the NIH, 20% of Americans suffer from some form of mental health challenge. It's also important to note that less than half of all Americans with a mental health disorder actually receive the treatment that they need. Even more, as we disaggregate the data further, what we find is that the proportion, the representation of African Americans who need mental health treatment and get it is only half of those of their white counterparts. According to the National Alliance on Mental Health, the Health and Human Services Office of Minority Health reported that African Americans are 20% more likely to experience serious mental health problems than the general population. Those challenges include depression, ADHD, suicide, and PTSD, not from war, but from experiencing violent crimes in their neighborhoods. So why do these data points matter, and why should the city of Boston be concerned? Because it has a direct impact on the health and the wellness and the safety of our neighborhoods. There is a direct correlation between mental health challenges and trauma, public safety, and violence. Going forward, what we hope to do is continue our campaign working with others across the city and across the Commonwealth to raise even greater awareness about mental health generally, and even more specifically, its impact on communities of color. What we're also hoping to do is make this, is to have our work be more localized, because so many of the data points we have, so much of the data speaks to national data and state level data. We need more data on the ground here in the city of Boston, specifically related to our neighborhoods. And so we look forward to continuing that work, certainly with the partners we currently have, but also working in collaboration with so many of you in this room, city councilors, and also interested residents. With that, I would like to ask Erica Florence to come forward to talk about our partnership.
Good afternoon, everyone. So,
Good afternoon.
Erica Florence, Chair of the Health Committee for the NAACP and AACP Boston branch. I actually am honored to be able to present this information to you guys, because we've been having conversations throughout the community about visibility, about getting our resources to our constituents. It's one thing to do the work, but if you're not reaching the people, then you're not actually getting the work done. So I was glad to have the support of our city councilors and their staff in getting this information to you all. So our partnership with McLean started, as President Sullivan said, in 2017, having conversations around stigma. The campaign is actually called Deconstructing Stigma. So if you look that up, or even if you received a resource guide on your way in, or will grab one on your way out, we have the website on there for you, so that you can check it out. The NAACP has a page specific to people of color. And when we begin this relationship, we realize that people of color, culturally, we just do not go out and tell people our business. Right? Let's keep it plain. You know, we're told to pray a little more, make it to church on Sunday, and we've been through hell and back, and this too shall pass. And we're looking to move people of color beyond that to feel comfortable speaking to someone when it is that you need some support. What we found was we prefer to see someone who looks like us, right? And that's in every place. That's in every platform, even with education. You want somebody who you can relate to, who looks like you. And so we developed a resource guide out of this relationship specific to people of color. And it has resources for veterans, for immigrants, for refugees, Blacks, Latinos, et cetera. And we're looking to add to it in the near future. So if you find that there is anything that we're missing that could be added, please reach out to us. We also have a screening for mental health tool that we provide free, confidential, and anonymous. The reports are sent directly to the NAACP, so we can keep an eye on what's going on in our community. What are the priorities? And as President Sullivan said, depression is #1. So we want to ensure that people have access to those resources. For those that are old school, you can have it in hand, but we also have it online. So it's not a diagnostic tool, it's simply a survey. So as you answer some questions, whether it's pertaining to yourself or a loved one, you're directed to those resources that are necessary for you to access. We've also had conversations with McLean, and they're already working with you, so we plan to add a youth component at some point. They're eager to get involved, and we actually heard earlier this morning, we had some young people in the room asking questions and asking how to get involved and asking for resources for their friends, and we welcome that. So if you have youth that are interested, as President Sullivan said, we have many different aspects to the NAACP, and there is a youth component there. So thank you for being here today and for listening. You'll see there's posters around the room, and we have guides for you guys to take home.
So I do want to, before you leave, and I know Kim is coming up, Joyce, if you could come forward as well. Important to note, as part of this campaign, one of the things that we said to McLean is, look, when you're talking about mental health, the images that people are seeing across the city are not diverse. To put it very plain, they were primarily of white folks who were talking very courageously about their experiences with mental health. What we recognized was that in order for communities of color to connect to this issue, they needed to see themselves. And so we launched this campaign. The posters are around the room. This poster campaign with McLean to really change the face, diversify the face of mental health. And we asked residents from across the city to volunteer, to share their stories, their personal stories about mental health. One of those courageous residents of the city of Boston was our chair of past chair of our health committee, Joyce Clark, who has her story featured on one of these boards. These boards you will see around the city, again, specifically in communities of color, so we can encourage more people to tell their stories so that more people will actually seek to receive the treatment that they need. So thank you.
Thank you. And so as we wrap up, it is important, thank you, President Sullivan, for us to tell our stories and really remove the stigma. I reminded of my uncle, my mother's brother, who had a mental illness. I'm not even sure what it was because it was something that we never, ever talked about. We just knew when he was doing well and when he wasn't. He was either in an institution or in Charles Street Jail. When he wasn't doing well. And so it is important that we take away the stigma, that we decriminalize mental illness, mental health issues, and that we do seek the help when we need the help. We have 2 resolutions. I won't take the time to read them here. One is for the NAACP, one is from McLean, talking about the good work and the partnership. Hope that you will continue to do this work, but also to continue to engage us so that we can, again, be better at our work. So they're identical. One is for McLean and one is for the NAACP. At this point, I want to also acknowledge our council president, who is also a co-sponsor of these resolutions, along with Councilor Asabi George. And I want to invite my colleagues to come up and take a photo, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Tanisha, let me do some photos.
Thank you, President. Nice seeing you again. All right, sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Steve Sullivan's daughter.
Thank you guys for that very special and important presentation. At this time, I'm going to invite Councilor Edwards up, who has a special presentation. Do you have a presentation? Do you not have a presentation? Maybe she doesn't have a presentation. Councilor Edwards is going to look for her guest who may not be here yet. So I will then quickly jump into our presentation. And if I can invite Yvette, Tatia, and Nelia, and the whole crew to just quickly come down. This will not be long, but please come forward. All of you beautiful people who are outside in 100 degrees, that would be you. Come forward. And then Councilor Janey as well, and then Councilor Edwards when she comes back. Tia, you want to speak, right? Okay. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. So I'll be very brief because we had this presentation outside. Folks showed up even though it was 90 degrees and it felt like it was 130 degrees outside. But we all showed up to acknowledge a very special day in this, not just in the city, in the world, frankly. July 25th is celebrated as International Afro-Latin American and Afro-Caribbean in the Diaspora Women's Day. And I know many have heard about this day in the past, but what was so special about the presentation outside and the speakers in the program, it really is about those who identify as either Black, Latinx, or however they are identified, that we say, no, we're all a part of the diaspora. More importantly, all of us share in a history that is Black, that was named outside today, and folks shared their story. I was there along with Councilor Edwards, Councilor Janey, Councilor Flynn, Councilor Wu also got to stop by, and many other colleagues who wanted to celebrate this day who couldn't stop by. So I, on behalf of my colleagues, want to thank you guys. I also want to thank Yvette for organizing the event, my team for assisting in organizing this incredible event. And I'm going to allow Atia, who's going to speak on behalf of the group, Dr. Atia Martin, who used to work for the city of Boston, who is now running our racial equity trainings, to say a few words about why this day is so important, give a quick highlight of what we discussed outside, and then we'll take a quick picture. So thank you. Thank you.
I won't make you say good afternoon, but I will welcome you with the good afternoon greeting. First of all, I want to say what an honor it is to be here with all of you. I want to say thank you to Councilor Campbell for being such a leader in advancing racial equity and all the layers of complication and sophistication necessary in order to do that kind of work. The other person I would like to thank is Yvette Modestine, who is really the leader behind making this day happen here in Boston, and to be a part of this more international celebration of the African diaspora. And so what I would like to say just very briefly, because I was told I have 1 to 2 minutes instead of the original time I had, so I had to actually make some notes to keep myself on track, which is this idea of a theme that came up outside was this idea of anti-Blackness, right? Being at the root of why so many people don't want to be connected to the African diaspora, regardless of the history that is very well documented of how we are all connected. There are only 10 countries in the whole entire world that were not colonized by Europe. I want you to just think about that. There are almost 200 countries in the world. There are only 10 of them that were not colonized by Europe. The reason that's so important is because as we think about how we are all connected through experience, but also through the idea of whiteness as the standard of normal that we all have to compare ourselves to. I don't mean white people. I mean the idea of whiteness as the standard of normalcy that we have internalized that has caused us to strive to achieve things that are outside of our culture, outside of who we are, and that are actually outside of our own best interests in terms of how we connect with one another as part of an African diaspora. Our power within, our ability to understand that history, to understand who we are, what we believe in, why we believe in, and where we got it from, is an important part of us being able to make those connections for ourselves, but also with each other so that we can tap into that second layer of power that intersects with agency and our ability to have power together and ability to address the challenges that we face as a larger community together. The last thing I'll share with you is one of our staff members on our team of all ACEs went to a conference down in NOLA and saw some art that had a quote from James Baldwin that I'll share with you. The American idea of racial progress is measured by how fast I become white. And I want us to sit on that because when we think about where we have opportunities to grow and evolve as an African diaspora, that it is incumbent on us that we understand that we have to be connected to our roots, and that by doing so, and being connected to each other, and that by doing so, it is not anything against white people. It is about us connecting with ourselves, our struggles, so that we can have the strength and power that we need to lead ourselves and our families and our own communities. I'll end with this last piece in terms of why the concept of anti-Blackness is so dangerous as part of this larger construct of racism, is because there is an expectation of this question that has to be answered by all of us, which is, why can't you be superhuman enough to overcome all the barriers that get thrown at you? Why can't you figure it out? Why can't you pull yourself up by your bootstraps, right? And there's a lot we can do as individuals, but the reality is we do not live in a society where our individual behavior alone and our individual decisions alone account for the outcomes of our lives. And I'm not going to defend that. The research shows us that. And so for me, as we think about the incredible power of this day, is it's an opportunity for us to love ourselves in ways that allows us to break down barriers between us, and that we also extend that grace to our white brothers and sisters as being accomplices with us in the struggle to be able to advance racial equity in our communities, and that we are taking our power and being able to lead our own communities in partnership with others. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you for Yvette for her amazing leadership, and thank you to you, City Council Kendall.
At this time, I'd like to invite all of my colleagues to come up for a quick picture, and I will not read the resolution on behalf of me, Councillor Edwards, and Councillor Janey, acknowledging this special day and why it's important and why we're all standing here together. So thank you guys so much.
Get close, get close.
As always, thank you.
Oh, I love you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That is it for the presentations, and Councillor Edwards will have a future presentation for one of her incredible Charlestown residents. And at this time, we're going to move on to the regular order of business. So I will move on to the approval of the minutes. If there are no corrections to be made, the minutes of the last council meeting will stand approved. Seeing and hearing no objection, the minutes are so approved. Moving on to communications from His Honor the Mayor.
Madam President, would you like me to read 1100 and 1101 together?
That would be great. Do you want to read through 1104?
Okay, sure.
Oh,
No, that's
just a minute. Let me do a quick recess. Thank you. We are back in session. Madam Clerk, I guess if you could read dockets 1100 through 1103 together.
Thank you, Madam President. Docket number 1100, message and order approving a supplemental appropriation for the Boston Public Schools in the amount of $819,588 to cover the FY20 cost items contained within the collective bargaining agreements between the Boston School Committee and the United Steelworkers Local 2936 bus monitors. The terms of the contract are July 1st, 2016 through June 30th, 2017, and July 2017, for July 1st, 2017, and July, wait a minute, and July, I think there's a mistake there. and July 1st through the 30th, June 30th of 2020. The major provisions of the contract include base wage increases of 2% in each fiscal year, while the Office of the City Clerk was filed in the Office of the City Clerk on July 29th, 2019. Docket number 1101, message in order to reduce the FY20 appropriation for the Reserve for Collective Bargaining by $819,588 to provide funding for the Boston Public Schools for the FY20 costs contained within the collective bargaining agreement between the Boston School Committee and the United States Steelworkers Local 2936 bus monitors. Docket number 1102, message in order approving a supplemental appropriation for the Boston Public Health Commission in the total amount of $241,104 to cover the FY20 cost items contained within the collective bargaining agreements between the Boston Public Health Commission and CENA Local 9158. The terms of the contract are October 1st, 2016 through July 30th, 2018, and October 1st, 2018 through September 30th, 2021. The major provisions of the contract include base wage increases of 2% effective the first pay period of January of each fiscal year. The agreement also contains other benefits, including new step beginning in 2020, filed in the Office of the City Clerk on July 29, 2019, and docket number 1103, message in order to reduce the FY20 appropriation for the reserves for collective bargaining by $241,104 to provide funding for the Boston Public Health Commission for the FY20 increases contained within the collective bargaining agreements between the Boston Public Health Commission and CENA Local 9158.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilor Siomo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Dockets 1100 and 1101 concern an appropriation for the collective bargaining agreement between the Boston School Committee and the United Steelworkers Local 2936 bus monitors. Docket 1101 transfers the funds from the collective bargaining reserve, and docket 1100 authorizes the use of these funds to pay for the contract. The bargaining unit is made up of over 600 bus monitors within the Boston Public Schools. The two consecutive agreements extend from July 1, 2016 through June 30th, 2020, with an estimated cost of $1.7 million over that 4-year period. Language items for this contract include reform regarding personal days, change in reporting time for morning absences, and new requirements for the use of tap cards intended to collect data to improve route efficiency, monitor attendance, and time reporting. Compensation and other cost items include a 2% wage increase effective in December of each year of the contract. The supplemental appropriation that we are authorizing today for this agreement is $819,588. Dockets 1102 and 1103 concern an appropriation for the collective bargaining agreement between the Public Health Commission and CENA Local 9158. Docket 1103 transfers the funds from the collective bargaining reserve, and docket 1102 authorizes the use of those funds to pay for the contract. This bargaining unit is made up of 31 middle managers, approximately 2/3 of whom work at Boston EMS. The two consecutive agreements extend from October 1, 2016 through September 30th, 2021, with an estimated cost of $914,000 through that 5-year period. Language items for this contract include a reduction of the annual vacation accrual rate for newly hired managers, an amendment to the existing article on overtime to limit the hours to which an overtime rate applies, and implementation of a reasonable suspicion and post-accident drug and alcohol testing policy for employees not currently covered by a departmental drug and alcohol testing policy. Compensation and other cost items include a 2% wage increase effective in January of each year of the contract, an increase to the annual rates in the existing longevity program effective January 2019, creation of a new hazardous duty payment for uniformed command staff at Boston EMS effective January 2019, the addition of a new Step 10 at a 2% increase from Step 9 effective in January 2020, and eligibility for paid parental leave consistent with the Council's 2015 ordinance. The supplemental appropriation that we are authorizing today for this agreement is $241,104. The Committee on Ways and Means has held 4 hearings on collective bargaining agreements since the beginning of the calendar year. These 2 agreements are substantively similar, following similar policy language, changes, cost items, step increases, and wage increase schedules that we have seen before. Therefore, I am recommending passage of these 4 dockets.
And suspension
Thank
of the
you.
rules. Thank you, Councilor Siomo. At this time, Councilor Siomo, who's chair of the Committee on Ways and Means, seeks suspension of the rules and passage of dockets 1100 through 1103. I'll take them separately. For docket 1100, all those in favor of passage say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1100 has been passed. For docket 1101, all those in favor of passage say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1101 has been passed. For docket 1102, all those in favor of passage say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1102 has been passed. And lastly, for docket 1103, all those in favor of passage say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1103 has been passed.
Docket number 1104, message and order approving an appropriation of $2,200,000 for the purpose of paying for the costs of a feasibility study and schematic design work associated with the renovation or new construction of a facility for the Josiah Quincy Upper School. Upon completion of the feasibility study, the City of Boston may be eligible for a grant from the Massachusetts School Building Authority. Said amount to be expended under the direction of the Public Facilities Department on behalf of the Boston Public Schools, filed in the Office of City Clerk on July 29, 2019.
Docket 1104 will be assigned to the Committee on Ways and Means.
Docket number 1105, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend a grant from Verizon Wireless for an amount of $1,500,000. The purpose of this grant is to fund digital equity programs and to support a Smart City Fellow position.
Docket 1105 will be assigned to the Committee on City and Neighborhood Services and Veterans and Military Affairs.
Docket number 1106, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend an amount of $1,500,000 in the form of a Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program Action Grant awarded by the Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. The purpose of this grant is to facilitate primarily design, technical analysis, and pre-permitting for proposed climate-resilient capital improvements to the Joseph Moakley Park located in the neighborhood of South Boston.
Docket 1106 will be assigned to the Committee on Environment, Sustainability, and Parks.
Docket number 1107, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend $936,920 in the form of a grant for the FY20 Success Link Employment Program awarded by the Mass Executive Office of Labor and Workforce Development, passed through the Economic Development and Industrial Corporation of Boston, to be administered by the Department of Youth Engagement and Employment. The grant will fund summer jobs for 427 youth from July through August 2019.
Docket 1107 will be assigned to the Committee I'm going to take a quick recess. Thank you. Thank you. Back in session. Forgot the name of a committee. Jobs. Docket 1107 will be assigned to the Committee on Jobs, Wages, and Workforce Development. And Councilor Baker, you are not forgetful. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
You're welcome. 1108, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend an amount of $450,000 in the form of a grant for the Downtown Boston Business Improvement District known as BID, Public-Private Safety Initiative, awarded by Donor Group to be administered by the Police Department. The grant will fund the purchase and installation of video cameras and related monitoring equipment, bicycle gear and related equipment to enhance the visibility of community police officers, and unmarked vehicles for the use in the downtown business area in an amount not to exceed $450,000. This equipment will assist BPD in enhancing public safety and improving the quality of life in the downtown area.
Docket 1108 will be assigned to the Committee on Public Safety and Criminal Justice.
Docket number 1109, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend a grant for $58,000 in the form of a grant for FY20 Local Consumer Program LCP Fund, awarded by the Mass Attorney General to be administered by the Office of Consumer Affairs and Licensing. The grant will fund the intake, resolution, and administration of consumers' complaints and outreach on the topic of concerns to consumers.
Councilor Janey, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Madam President. This is docket 1109. It is a $58,000 grant that it was awarded by the Mass Attorney General's Office to the Office of Consumer Affairs here in the city that would help them with their intake and getting the complaints, receiving the complaints so that they can better serve clients and residents in our city. So I'm asking my colleagues if we can suspend the rules and pass this docket. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Janey. At this time, Councilor Janey, who's chair of the Committee on Small Business and Consumer Affairs, seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1109. All those in favor of passage say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1109 has been passed.
Docket 1110, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend the amount of $30,000 in the form of a grant for the FY19 MHC Survey and Planning Grant awarded by the Massachusetts Historical Commission to be administered by the Environment Department. The grant will fund technical support for the Architectural Conservation District study concerning Highland Park in Roxbury.
Councilor O'Malley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise today to ask suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1110, authorizing the city to accept and expend the amount of $30,000 in the form of a grant from the FY19 MHC Survey and Planning Grant. This grant was awarded by the Massachusetts Historical Commission and will be administered by the Environment Department. In 1978, 10 registered voters petitioned the Boston Landmarks Commission requesting that the Highland Park of Roxbury be considered for designation as an architectural conservation district. Recently, members of the community approached the Landmarks Commission to consider the designation. However, in order to proceed, a study report on the district must be completed. The Landmarks Commission is hiring a consultant to conduct the necessary research, and the Mass Historical Commission has agreed to fund this activity. 6 local representatives and 5 members of the Boston Landmarks Commission will also be appointed by the mayor and confirmed by our body. The committee will be responsible for reviewing the significance of the area and the possible impact of a designation. They will make recommendations concerning boundaries and design criteria for review. I ask that we suspend the rules and pass this today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Councilor O'Malley, who is the chair of the Committee on Environment, Sustainability, and Parks, seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1110. All those in favor of passage say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1110 has been passed. Moving on to petitions, memorials, and remonstrances.
Docket number 1111, petition of Flixbus, Inc. for a license to operate motor vehicles for the carriage of passengers for hire over certain streets in Boston.
Docket 1111 will be assigned to the Committee on Planning, Development, and Transportation.
Madam President, would you like me to read docket 1112 through 1121?
Right, moving on to reports of public offices and others. God love you, Madam Clerk. We could read dockets 1112 through 1121 together. That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Docket 1112. Notice is received from the mayor of the withdrawal of docket 1049, originally filed with the Office of City Clerk on July 10th, 2019. Docket 1113, notice is received from the mayor of his absence from the city from 12:45 p.m. on Tuesday, July 23rd, 2019, until 5:45 on Wednesday, July 24th, 2019. Docket number 1114, communication was received from Brian P. Golden, Director of the Boston Planning and Development Agency, regarding proposed minor modifications to the Charlestown Urban Renewal Plan Project, number Mass R-55, with respect to the creation of parcel R-36. Docket number 1115, communication was received from the city clerk of the filing by the Boston Redevelopment Authority of the application of the Cote Village Chapter 121A project. Docket number 1116, communication was received from Councilor Janey of the notification that she and other elected officials will be meeting with an anti-violence activist on Friday, July 26th at 10 a.m. Docket number 1117, notice was received from the mayor of the appointment of Ryan Woods as chairman of the Parks and Recreation Commission, for a term coincided with his tenure as commissioner of the Parks and Recreation Department. Docket 1118, notice was received from the mayor of the appointment of Christopher Cook as a member of the Parks and Recreation Commission for a term expiring on July 7th, 2023. Docket number 1119, notice was received from the mayor of the appointment of Leonard M. Lee as a member of the Parks and Recreation Commission for a term expiring on July 7th, 2023. Docket number 1120, notice was received from the mayor of the appointment of Catherine Bennett as acting administrator of the Boston Housing Authority, effective July 26, 2019. And docket number 1121, notice was received from the mayor of his absence from the city from 10 a.m. on Saturday, July 27, 2019, until 10 a.m. on Monday, July 29, 2019.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Dockets 1112 through 1121 will be placed on file. Reports of committees.
Docket number 1048, the Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred on July 10th, 2019, docket number 1048. Message and order authorizing an appropriation in the amount of $12,101,645 for the purpose of paying the costs associated with boiler and window door projects at the following schools: the Rafael Hernandez School, Patrick Lydon School, Donald McKay School, James Otis School, Josiah Quincy School, and the John D. O'Brien School of Mathematics and Science, submits a report recommending the order ought to be read for the first time and assigned for further action.
Madam Clerk, if we could read docket 1050 as well.
Sure. Docket number 1050, the Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred on July 10th, 2019. Docket number 1050, message and order approving the appropriation of $400,000 for the purpose of paying for the costs of a feasibility study and schematic design work associated with the renovation of the new construction at the following schools: McKinley K through 12, Curley K through 8, the Mary Lyons School, for which the City of Boston may be eligible for a grant from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, said amount to be expended under the direction of the Public Facilities Department on behalf of the Boston Public Schools, submits a report recommending the order ought to be read for the first time and assigned for further action.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilor Seaman, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. The committee held its hearing on Wednesday, July 10th, and we heard testimony from Brian McLaughlin, the Chief of Staff for the Public Facilities Department, as well as Zach Scott, the Deputy Chief of Operations for Boston Public Schools. Docket 1048 is an appropriation in the amount of $12,101,645 for boiler and window and door replacements at certain schools, otherwise known as the Accelerated Repair Program. These are projects for which statements of interest were submitted and for which the council approved study funds in 2018. Design started in the fall of 2018 on these projects, and MSBA approved the project's scope and budget at their June 2019 board meeting. It is estimated that the total budget for these projects will be approximately $12 million, with $7 million estimated to be reimbursed to the city. These projects include boiler projects at the Raphael Hernandez in Roxbury, the Patrick Linden in West Roxbury, the Donald McKay in East Boston, the Josiah Quincy in downtown Boston, as well as window and door replacements at the James Otis of East Boston and the John D. O'Brien at Roxbury. Docket 1050 is an appropriation in the amount of $400,000 for a feasibility study and schematic design work associated with project at certain schools. These are projects for which statements of interest were submitted in 2019. The MSBA approved 3 of the 6 projects submitted in 2019. These projects include roof projects at the McKinley K-12 in Boston, as well as the Curley K-8 in Jamaica Plain, and a boiler project at the Mary Lyon in Brighton. Therefore, I recommend passage and assign for further action.
Thank you, Councilor Siomo. At this time, Councilor Siomo seeks acceptance of the committee report, and we'll take our first vote on dockets 1048 and 1050. Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll for docket 1048.
Thank you, Madam President. Councilor Baker?
Yes.
Councilor Baker, yes. Councilor Campbell?
Yes.
Councilor Campbell, yes. Councilor Siomo?
Yes.
Councilor Siomo, yes. Councilor Edwards? Councilor Edwards, yes. Councilor Asabi George?
Yes.
Councilor Asabi George, yes. Councilor Flaherty?
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Flynn?
Yes.
Councilor Flynn, yes. Councilor Garrison?
Yes.
Councilor Garrison, yes. Councilor Janey?
Yes.
Councilor Janey, yes. Councilor McCarthy?
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy, yes. Councilor O'Malley?
Yes.
Councilor O'Malley, yes. Councilor Wu? Councilor Wu, yes. And Councilor Zachem? Councilor Zachem, yes. Excuse me, Madam President, docket number 1048 has received its first vote with a unanimous vote.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Docket 1048 will be assigned for further action. If we could take the roll call vote for docket 1050.
Thank you. Councilor Baker?
Yes.
Councilor Baker, yes. Councilor Campbell?
Yes.
Councilor Campbell, yes. Councilor Siomo?
Yes.
Councilor Siomo, yes. Councilor Edwards? Yes. Councilor Edwards, yes. Councilor Asabi George? Yes. Councilor Asabi George, yes. Councilor Flaherty?
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Flynn?
Yes.
Councilor Flynn, yes. Councilor Garrison?
Yes.
Councilor Garrison, yes. Councilor Janey?
Yes.
Councilor Janey, yes. Councilor McCarthy?
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy, yes. Councilor O'Malley?
Yes.
Councilor O'Malley, yes. Councilor Wu? Councilor Wu, yes. And Councilor Zachem?
Yes.
Councilor Zachem, yes. Madam President, docket number 1050 has received its first vote with a unanimous vote.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Docket 1050 will be assigned for further action.
Docket number 0645, the Committee on Arts, Culture, and Special Events, to which was referred on April 10th, 2019, docket number 0645. Message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend the amount of $199,100 in the form of a grant for the FY19 Local Cultural Council Program awarded by the Massachusetts Cultural Council to be administered by the Office of Arts and Culture. The grant will fund Boston Cultural Council subgrants, submits a report recommending the order ought to pass.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilor Janey, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Madam President. The Committee on Arts, Culture, and Special Events held a hearing on July 23rd. We were joined by Councilor Asabi George, thank you so much for attending. Thank you all who sent staff. We were also joined by the Chief of Arts and Culture for the Mayor's Office. This was to discuss Docket 0645, a message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend an amount of $199,100 in the form of a grant. This grant would support the sub-grants for cultural districts throughout the city. We heard a presentation from the chief, as I mentioned. One of the things that we learned is that the City of Boston does put up another $300,000 so that the actual total of the amounts going out to grantees is $500,000, which is good to see that. Recently, they created, I think just this year, a model equity program where they awarded 3 grants to different model equity organizations. They included this year the Urbano Project, Arts Connect International, and BAMS Fest for folks who went to the BAM Festival in Franklin Park a couple of weeks ago. And that's great that we've got this model equity. I think the other thing that we learned is that we have a lot more work to do. Out of all of the grants all of the organizations that received a grant, there are 220, but only 3 were these model equity grants, so there's more work to do there. Those grants were $5,000. So that's good news. But based on everything that we heard and the commitment to do more around the model equity program and to make sure that we're getting money right into these cultural districts, to these organizations in the form of these grants, I recommend that we ought to pass Docket 0645.
Thank you, Councilor
Thank you so
Janey.
much. And I also just want to thank Kerry and Juan for all of their help with the hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, Councilor Janey, who is the chair of the Committee on Arts, Culture, and Special Events, seeks acceptance of the committee report and passage of Docket 0645. All those in favor of passage say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Docket 0645 has been passed. Matters recently heard for possible action.
Docket number 0879, order for hearing on the proposed north-south rail link.
Councilor Wu, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll defer to the lead sponsor and other colleagues who were present at the hearing, but we had a great conversation sponsored by Councilor Sabi George with Councilor Baker and Councilor Flynn also present, and many other staff members in the room about the proposed transit project, the costs, the projections, and a lot of public support. We were joined by Governor Dukakis and former Governor Dukakis, former Representative John Bussinger, Senator Jamie Eldridge, Representative Tammy Govea, and many, many, many advocates talking about, it gave a great presentation. So we'll defer to the sponsor, but for my part, would ask that this matter remain in committee for further action. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Wu. Councilor Sabi George, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to Councilor Wu for her leadership as chair of that meeting on Monday evening. I think it was a very productive meeting about the North-South Rail Link, and grateful for the partnership of those that were in attendance. As Councilor Wu mentioned, Governor Dukakis, Senator Eldridge, former State Rep Bussinger, as well as many members of the North-South Rail Link Working Group, Transit Matters, the Sierra Club, Northeast for Rail Passengers, National Association, as well as the Regional Transportation Advocacy Council. Many more. They participated all as panelists, but we had many more in the room. The 2 commuter rail system has created a critical gap of service between the northern and southern regions of our city and our area. The result is a fragmented regional system in which workers and employees cannot access each other efficiently, or each end efficiently, and where highway congestion is severe and it limits economic opportunity. There was strong support from our panelists, of course, and we received a powerful public testimony from supporters in this project. And I would also add, we heard from many residents from outside the city of Boston how critical this link would be for us. And although this is a state matter, it's important for us here at the City Council, the Boston City Council, to host this hearing, especially given the impact that transportation continues to have on the quality of life for Boston residents and our local economy, as well as the impact on our environment. As a council, this hearing offered a chance for us to take a leadership position in developing solutions for our residents, for our visitors and for those that work in the city of Boston and in the region. I have been a longtime supporter of the North-South Rail Link, and in this hearing reaffirmed that position. I would say that although it's important, and this conversation was about connecting the southern area of the rail and the northern area of the rail, because they right now have these stub ends. There is no connection, there's a mile gap, that it's about creating that link for sure, but it's also about a larger conversation around the network altogether. And this is part of the larger conversation that many of us are having in silos that we do need to, I think, connect to make sure that we have a better integrated transportation system, both for rail and buses and rapid transit, as well as our roads and our bicycle network. So all of that needs to be part of the larger conversation. This was simply a piece of it that I think is important to move ahead on, and we will encourage the state delegation and the governor to move forward on that. I think there was a lot of hand-wringing at that hearing earlier this week, but we'll continue to push forward, no doubt. Thank you again to colleagues who are in the room and who have lent their support to this effort, and thank you, Council President, for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Councilor Asabi-George. Councilor Baker, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just first want to thank Councilor George for her leadership on this and Councilor Wu for holding the hearing. Councilor George talked about stub ends. The stub ends meaning it stops there. So one of the things that happens when we connect north and south, we're able to take those train yards, which would be South Station and North Station, and now those become smaller train yards at the end of the lines. So we in the city of Boston would end up with probably new land to develop on. Also, what I discovered here was I think you'll have a lot of proponents, but the question is, how are we going to pay for this? We're talking anywhere from $5 billion to $9 billion, another big dig, which when the big dig was happening, we had people like Ted Kennedy, Tip O'Neill, and Joe Moakley in Congress. This is very much a federal, I would call it more federal first, then state. We use our voice to, for lack of a better term, lean on the state, lean on the feds to help us get something like this done. If we're going to talk regional transportation, if this is not in the plan, then we're not doing a service for the city of Boston, the state of Massachusetts, New England, and the entire East Coast. It would connect Miami all the way up to Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont. Now to get to Montreal on the train, you would need to take the train to Springfield and pick up an Amtrak that comes out of New York up to Montreal. So I have family in Montreal, so that to me would something that would be of interest to me. But very much I think our job could be talking to our federal reps. I plan on talking to my congressman as soon as I can next week. But good hearing, informative. Let's keep making noise. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Baker. Councilor Flynn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President, and I want to say also thank you to Councilor Wu and Councilor Asabi-George for their leadership on this issue. There was testimony also given by the Sierra Club, an environmental group, and that was the issue that I really focused on. What type of impact would this have on the environment, linking South Station and North Station on the environment? I know I've talked many times about the terrible air quality that we see in many neighborhoods around transportation sites such as South Station or North Station, or an area myself and Councilor Baker represent, Andrew Station. So those are the concerns that I'm going to focus on, is will this north-south link really help the air quality of the residents of Boston? And if the answer is yes, I really want to work hard to make sure it is passed. We look at several neighborhoods near South Station, including the Leather District, including Chinatown, South End, and South Boston. And we were at a press conference several weeks ago, myself and Councilor Wu, and they said that the residents of Chinatown have the highest negative air quality of any neighborhood in the country. And a lot of that is because it's right next to South Station, It's right on top of the Massachusetts Turnpike. It's right next to the highway system. The trains are in and out. The buses at Salt Station are running all day long, and the kids are breathing those fumes in. You look at the Reggie Wong volleyball park and playground, and kids are playing basketball there all day, but they're breathing in those fumes. Those are major concerns that we have as it relates to public health. And also, on a somewhat unrelated, Andrew Station is also in that same situation. They're also at a bus station, at a train station, on a highway system, and we're lucky to have great advocates for years in the Andrew Station area, John Mullen or Russ Waterman, and they were environmentalists before we even knew the term of environmentalist. So I also want to make sure that we connect the neighborhoods of Boston that may be directly or indirectly benefiting from this type of link, the north-south, and make sure that we have a robust discussion of all the neighborhoods in the city and how this will benefit them. I was somewhat disappointed we did not have the level of Boston residents at the hearing. I think we need to engage the residents of Boston on the benefits of a north-south rail link and how it will impact them, how will it improve their public health as well. So I think we have a lot of work to do. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councillor Flynn. Docket 0879 will remain in the Committee on Planning, Development, and Transportation. Moving on to motions, orders, and resolutions.
Docket number 1122, Council Siomo offered the following. An act authorizing the City of Boston to grant one additional license for the sale of alcoholic beverages to be drunk on premises.
Councilor Siomo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. The Charles River Speedway building has a long history in Alston, Brighton, dating back to 1899, when it served as the headquarters of the Metropolitan Park Commission and was the centerpiece of the Charles River Basin Reservation. The Speedway building slowly fell into disrepair over the next half-century as park operations were moved off to other locations. The planned restoration of the Speedway building will help revitalize the section of Alston Brighton by creating a gathering place for neighbors and visitors, opportunities for local artisans and small business owners, as well as a mix of retail and dining options. The Architectural Heritage Foundation Incorporated, a Massachusetts nonprofit corporation, was selected through an open and public process by the Department of Conservation and Recreation in accordance with the historic curatorship program established in Section 44 of Chapter 85 of the Acts of 1994 to restore the property. The sustainable preservation of the Speedway Administration Building in accordance with the Secretary of Interior standards for historic rehabilitation requires adaptive reuse for nonprofit organization offices, artist studios, or commercial or retail space. With a non-transferable license for the sale of alcoholic beverages to be drunk on the premises, the Architectural Heritage Foundation will be able to attract a larger pool of tenants to the restored Speedway building, making the continued preservation of the building possible and feasible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Siomo. At this time, anyone else looking to speak on this matter or add their name? Madam Clerk, if you could add Councilor Baker, Councilor Sabi George, Councilor Edwards, Councilor Flaherty, Councilor Flynn, Councilor Garrison, Councilor McCarthy, Councilor Wu, Councilor Zakam, as well as the Chair. Docket 1122 will be assigned to the Committee on Government Operations. Moving on to personnel orders.
Docket number 1123, Councilor Campbell for Councilor Flynn.
Councilor Flynn seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1123. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1123 has been passed.
Docket number 1124, Councilor Campbell for Councilor McCarthy.
Councilor McCarthy seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1124. All those in favor of passage say aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1124 has been passed.
Docket number 1125, Counsel Campbell for Counsel McCarthy.
Counsel McCarthy seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1125. All those in favor of passage say aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1125 has been passed.
Docket number 1126, Counsel Campbell for Counsel Asabi George.
Counsel Asabi George seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1126. All those in favor of passage say aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1126 has been passed. Moving on to late files. I am informed by the clerk that there are no late files. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to green sheets. Anybody wishing to remove a matter from the green sheets? Moving right along. I am informed by the clerk that there are 2 late file matters for the consent agenda, which in the absence of objection will be added to the consent agenda. Hearing and seeing no objections, the 2 late file matters are so added. At this time, the chair moves for adoption of the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The consent agenda has been adopted. Announcements? Councilor Wu?
Ask for unanimous consent to make a statement about the ZBA.
Any objections? Councilor Wu, you have the floor.
So I just wanted to clarify and keep colleagues up to date. I had heard that the chairwoman of the Zoning Board of Appeals had made some comments at the session this week that the council was holding up nominations and confirmations. So just to make sure everyone knew what was happening at the hearing, several councilors had asked about the particular nominees' views on the cannabis buffer zone and how that was being interpreted, et cetera, et cetera. So we had promised that we would send a follow-up question to make sure that we got a response from everyone just on whether they, how they viewed that. I will read the question that I sent immediately after the hearing over to the administration. Sorry, 1 second. Just a simple yes or no question. Do you believe that approving multiple new cannabis licenses less than 0.5 miles apart would effectively be granting a waiver to the marijuana buffer zone rule in the zoning code according to the language and intention of the rule? Again, there's a little bit of backstory, but basically there have been 2 interpretations now of that in the zoning code. One is the way that I believe the council intended and through the legislative process that Councilor Flaherty led, and the other has been an interpretation that uses the word existing to define a loophole so that 2 new licenses at the same time could actually be within that zone, which seems to go against what all the hearings had been about. So it was just a yes or no question that has been sent over to the administration, and they had expressed that they wanted to be the ones to facilitate sending that over to all the nominees to get a response. I have only received 3 responses, and so rather than kind of do it piecemeal, was waiting for everyone to give their responses back. Have been continually checking in with the administration and others about whether they want us to reach out directly, but I think people have been busy, et cetera, et cetera. So that is the reason for the delay. It's nothing about any other sort of leverage, et cetera, just waiting for those responses because I believe it's our role having an oversight over those nominations to get the answers that we requested. And this is really not a heavy lift, just a yes or no. But
thank you.
Wanted to let you all know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Wu, for the clarification. Councilor McCarthy, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Permission to make a unanimous statement about the Parks Department event.
Go right ahead.
Thank you very much. Tomorrow night is the 2nd of the concert series at George Wright Golf Course, 6:30 tomorrow night. I know some of you have gone, some of you have not. Some of you are campaigning, some of us are not. But if you aren't campaigning on the trail, 6:30 tomorrow night, great bands. My nephew's band, they'll be on the patio tomorrow night. It's a really good time. Good food, couple adult malt beverages, and a lot of fun. So I hope to see you there.
Thank you, Councilor McCarthy. Councilor Janey, you have the floor.
Well, speaking of campaigns, so I want to, I rise to ask permission to make an unanimous
these days. Go right ahead.
Thank you so much, Madam President. I just want to say a few words. Some of you may know that today is Noah Coolidge's last day. Noah is my Policy and Communications Director.
He's over here too, right?
I'm going to ask him to stand up. We've been joined by our entire staff and all of our interns. Noah, please stand up. Woo-hoo. Thank you. Thank you. Noah, I first met Noah, I think it was May of 2017, and it was at an interview. I was recruiting for my first campaign. I was looking for a campaign manager, and I was looking high and low, Wonder Woman, I want somebody from Roxbury, I want a person of color. Noah is none of those things. But Noah was incredible. So we met at Silver Slipper in my district. And he came in just kind of this young, kind of straight out of school guy, a little shy, a little timid, a little awkward. And it was my first campaign. This was his first time running an actual campaign. He had served on several campaigns, worked on several campaigns in the past, but the first time that he was a campaign manager. And you know, more than 2 years later, here we are. He did an incredible job. Because I'm standing here speaking to you right now on my campaign, and he's done an incredible job as my policy and communications director. To see the growth when I first met him that day at Silver Slipper to now, it's just been incredible to watch, and I am so proud of you, Noah. Noah is at a crossroads, and that's what I said during my first campaign. He is now off to grad school. He's off to get married. He's off to move into a new place. We certainly wish him well. I'm deeply grateful for your commitment to my office, to this work, to pushing on equity, to making sure that the residents of the city of Boston, and particularly those in District 7, get the resources, get the support, get the response, get the advocacy that they all deserve. And so, one, I wanted to say that publicly, to thank you, Noah, but also to invite all of you, my colleagues, as well as staff, as well as central staff, out this evening. We're going to celebrate Noah at 5, well, right after work, so 5-ish, at Scholars on School Street. Everyone's welcome to attend. So I just wanted to say that. So thank you, Noah, for doing just incredible work. We wish you well. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Janey. Councilor Malley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I ask unanimous consent to make a brief statement in memoriam. Thank you. West Roxbury lost a giant on Sunday, a woman named Pauline McLaughlin. Many of you knew her. She actually was no stranger to this building. She served in the Marines during World War II. She was known as a Lady Leatherneck, a title that she really was so proud of. And she was the president of the Boston Trailer Park Tenants Association. Now, some of you may know there is one trailer park in the city of Boston, and it is in West Roxbury. And it is a wonderful place. And it's a remarkable story. Working with this mayor, the prior mayor, Tom Menino, my predecessor, John Tobin, and myself, Mara Hennigan, even before that, there's been a great partnership at the trailer park. It started as a private, more affordable. It was never designated affordable housing, but it was a lot less. It was an affordable option for many people. Residents came together and actually purchased the trailer park from the community builders, TCB, which had owned it in the mid-2000s. And then they owned it, and Pauline was such a driving force of that. It's 100 trailers, 100 units. It was actually the last vestige when rent control went away in the mid-90s. It remained in the trailer park until about 2011 or 2012 when residents there had owned it, had bought the trailer park. Residents themselves voted to opt out of rent control because they wanted to be able to have assessments to really rehab the infrastructure. It's a wonderful place. And the success that they have had there lays squarely on the shoulders of Pauline McLaughlin. She was a great friend, someone I will miss dearly, and was just really an unsung Bostonian and a wonderful person. So we will be closing in memory of her today, along with other people, but I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank Pauline for her incredible friendship, leadership, and support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Malley. Councilor Edwards, you have the floor.
I rise like my previous colleagues to ask consent to make a brief statement. I just wanted to note that a great East Bostonian has decided to transition today from ISD. Pat Capangreco, who is a person I got to know through campaigning, but who some of us have known for a long time, is not only a friend, but he's been someone I've been able to go to for everything. He's one of the few people that I've gotten to know that literally there's not something about East Boston, there's not something about the city government that I can't just go to him and basically say, Pat, what's up? And I'm going to miss him in that official capacity. I don't doubt that he'll always answer my phone call. I just wanted to give up a couple examples. I mean, not only has he been great in just helping us navigate ISD issues, but one of the things that speaks to his heart and his dedication of East Boston was when we just started the soup kitchen. And he heard about this, and he meant it. Anything you need, I'll be there. So I was like, okay, Pat, we'll see what happens. Because a lot of people are all excited about, giving and whatnot. He meant it. If we needed groceries, if we needed socks, he got us hats, he got us gloves. He got all of that delivered to the soup kitchen in the middle of winter. Literally anything for anybody. He's so happy to give and so happy to serve. Not just East Boston, but that's how I met him, and that's where his heart is, and that's where he's born, raised, and where his family's from. So I just wanted to acknowledge, I know that he's stepping away from ISD, but he's forever going to be part of East Boston, forever part of that, our community, and I just want to acknowledge his service to the city.
Thank you, Councilor Edwards. Councilor Baker, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can statement,
Yes.
everything's good? Okay. I just want to thank the chair for the planning today, because I had an experience at the zoning board yesterday, and because we have no alternates, a project that I had there yesterday that I worked on for 2 solid years, and it's a school, it's going to provide good, healthy seats for kids in Dorchester. So with no alternates on the board, if you have one dissenting vote, then the project goes down. Yesterday, being in front of the board, and I went in there with confidence, because I knew that I had done my work, that the school, on my behalf, what I asked them to do, they had done, but there were angry residents there that know how to lobby and know how to make people's lives miserable. So I was concerned that I was going to get one dissenting vote yesterday, which would have basically put this school all the way back to 3 years ago. So I was going to stand today for an open plea to say, how do we move this along here? It's at a stalemate. We're putting undue burden on not only the city of Boston, but also small business and the residents. We need to move this along. A lot of our work in the past couple of years has been about making city procedures more efficient and just better user-friendly for us, the public. And what's happening up at zoning now, people that deferred yesterday, they're into October now. Just a couple years ago, when you would apply for a zoning hearing, you were 6-8 months out. So if you're a small business owner, like I was a small business owner, and retaining that space, I don't think that we should make that process any longer. We've done a lot of work to make it so it's 2 or 3 months turnaround with your appeals. We're gonna get back to the old ways if we don't work in conjunction with across the hall. And I agree to some degree with what's going on here with the marijuana zoning question. But I think we need to either we move the 3 along, or we need to do something. So open plea to let's work with this administration and get this thing moving along. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Baker. Councilor Janey?
Thank you so much, Madam President. I rise this time to just lift up Harry Wilson, who passed away. I'm sure many of you have submitted his name. He was very active in Pop Warner football. He passed away since our last council meeting. It's been a couple of weeks now, but really important to lift him up as a huge community leader. I probably have a dozen nephews who went through Pop Warner football, and a lot of them played for the Raiders. He just did so much to teach young boys in particular the importance of teamwork, of discipline, of sportsmanship, of collaboration. And so as his family and friends and all those he touched, as we mourn as a community, I just wanted to lift him up today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Janey. I was going to say a few words, but you've summed it up, so thank you very much. Anyone else have any other announcements? All right, at this time, I would ask that all colleagues, guests, and staff please rise as we adjourn today's meeting in memory of the following individuals. For Councilor Janey, Councilor McCarthy, as well as the chair, Coach Harry Wilson. For Councilor Janey, Horace Shearer, Marianne Carant, Jerry Lorenzo, and Bob Peterson. For Counselor Garrison, Kevin McCrea. For Counselor Edwards, Mamie McDuffie. For Counselor Siomo, Susan Ann Grillick. For Counselor Siomo and Asabi George, Hiram Miguel Rodriguez Rao. For Counselor O'Malley, George Cronin, Pauline McLaughlin, and George O'Dea. For Counselors O'Malley and McCarthy, Angelo Rossi, Kelly Rossi, Sharon Naraki. And for Counselors Counselors Flaherty and Flynn, Arthur Chu, and Patrick O'Malley. A moment of silence, please. Thank you. The chair moves that when the council adjourns today, it does so in memory of those following, or those aforementioned individuals. We're scheduled to meet again in this chamber on Wednesday, August 21st at 12 noon. So the council will be on a summer break for 2 weeks. In this chamber, August 21st at 12 noon would be our next meeting. All those in favor of adjournment say aye. Any opposed, say nay. All opposed, or any opposed, say nay. The council is adjourned.
Thank you.